Secret Service Sam, the secret show. This super service Sam and secret service show. Oh, super secret show. Oh, so now you know. Ladies and gentlemen, Service Sam, my very high budget show. As you can see, that's my opening song. I do have a very slick intro video coming. I'm just getting back in town, so I have not had the opportunity to produce it yet, but I promise you it is coming and it'll be super slick, super secret, and super awesome. This is Secret Service Sam, my show here on YouTube, taking everybody from TikTok because TikTok has been ripping me off, Patriots. Now, today, I have a friend of mine on the show. He is a gentleman that I met inside the courtroom throughout the case. He's got an amazing history, story, and connection to this case. Let me bring him on. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Champ. Champ, are you there?
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
What an intro. What an intro. His phone
Gotta start off with a bang, baby. I'm here. How you doing, Sam? How you doing, man?
Great, man. How are you doing?
Easy like a Sunday morning, cooler than the other side of the pillow, man.
Oh, snap. I've heard easy like Sunday morning. I'm gonna be high. So high. Man, Lionel Richie, people do not put enough respect on Lionel Richie's name because, I mean, how many dancing on the ceiling all night long, easy like Sunday morning. I mean, just such great music.
He wrote a lot of records. That's another thing. He was like another Smokey Robinson.
Exactly. I mean, and like We Are the World. I mean, he wrote that.
Yes.
A little side note, I actually got booed off the Showtime at the Apollo singing Lionel Richie's all night long. I'm not sure if you were aware.
I can see why. You don't know how to hold a note, bro.
Man, hey, hold on there, Champ. Hang on, Champ. I can hold a note, Champ. That was not full on Sam I was giving you there earlier. Well, I was singing fine. I just shook my butt at the crowd 2 times too much and
you can't do that to a New York crowd, Sam. You can't do that, man.
I didn't know. I was a little boy from the Midwest who came out to the big streets in New York. I rubbed the wood stump,
Pause.
Yeah, what?
Pause.
I rubbed the stump.
Rub the stump. Yes, not the wood stump. All right, be careful with the word.
My bad, bro. My bad. Hilarious. Pause. So, Champ, enough about me. Tell people a little bit about yourself. You have your own YouTube channel here. Tell people a little bit about your history and how you're connected to this Diddy case.
My history is very long, so I'll condense it as much as possible. I am a former co-host from Math Hop, is my expert opinion show. I'm also the owner of one of the biggest magazines in the prison system. Past owner. I recently sold my share in it, but it's still alive and flourishing in the prison systems around the country. I had my connection to Diddy spans from knowing the head of his crisis management team, also meeting Diddy on several occasions, especially when I was on Math Hoffa show. There was a deal that was supposed to take place between us and Diddy when he was on Revolt.
Okay.
And we were supposed to get a deal, but for some reason it didn't go through. But I met him on several occasions, and he was cool as a fan, very, very humble, very kind.
You said he was a fan?
No. I say he was very cool and calm and kind.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought you said he was like a fan of the paper that you had or something like that.
No, he actually was a fan of the show. He was a fan of the show that I was on.
Okay, that's what I meant.
So he wanted us to sign on to him for like $2 million or something like that. But for some reason, I don't know why, what went on in the back office, it didn't go through. But we met with Diddy about three or four different occasions.
Okay.
So that's pretty much my connection. But I'm a business consultant, have my own personal training business, the magazine business, and I have my own podcast on YouTube called Spin the Yard, on my YouTube channel at Champion Style TV.
Okay. And so you said you had a paper, the number one
Magazine.
magazine. I'm sorry. Can
Yeah.
you explain that, like how that came about and what that is for people that don't know?
So the magazine is based. So I was incarcerated. I'm formerly incarcerated. I came
Okay.
home May of 2021. While I was inside, I was doing a 7 year stint, and I noticed that I went in 2014, and so I was technologically savvy. I knew about social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everything. So inside, you don't have internet access. And it used to bother me so much that we couldn't see what was going on unless we watched TMZ or Inside Edition, or all of those entertainment shows. That's how we were privy to information as far as the entertainment world is concerned.
Interesting.
So I decided what happened is I used to have people, like family members and friends, send me like stacks and stacks of screenshot pictures, physical pictures from posts on Instagram,
Oh,
in
wow.
order for me to stay in tune with the times. Even though I'll get it 3 or 4 days later, I
Sure. But
was
you're
still
still,
able.
yeah.
I was still in the loop. So I was taking that and I would go out to like the yard during recreation, or in
Mhm.
the housing unit in the cell block, and I would show other convicts these things like, did you hear about this? Did you see this? Boom. So
Right.
it became a thing, and it's like I became the information go-to guy inside.
Wow.
And I decided with a friend of mine,
Mhm.
who lives out in LA. I said, yo, we should start a magazine out of this,
Mhm.
where we highlight, public information, put it in magazine form, make it look cool, give it a cool name, and
Yeah.
then also educate the viewers of the magazine on what social media is, and how it could work for them.
Wow. That is, and what was the name of the paper, the magazine again? I'm sorry.
It's called YKTV Magazine, meaning you
Why?
know the vibes. It's an acronym.
Oh, okay, okay. YT, I get it. You know the vibes. That is cool. That is
Mhm.
crazy. I had never, I didn't realize that. And all the times, you and I have kind of talked a little bit
Well,
outside
it
the
wasn't
court.
for that, it wasn't for that setting for the most part. Like, we were
Sure.
so focused on the information and what we were hearing during trial,
Okay.
that it's not like somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, tell me your backstory, tell me your history,"
Right. Right. And
So I'm not gonna offer it.
right. I understand that. And then, um, what I find interesting is like, is the magazine still in rotation in
Yes, it's
prisons?
in
Okay.
it's in heavy rotation still in about 47 states
Wow.
in,
And
in
so
between.
I didn't realize that you could not get internet in prison. You're only able to get like television.
Yeah, television. They have something called JPay. They have GTL, core links, things like that. Whether it depends if you're in the county, the state, or the federal system. But
Okay.
they have these kiosk systems where you're allowed to take a tablet. They give you tablets, and you're allowed to hook it up to the kiosk system, download music,
Okay.
send emails, get emails, but you have no internet access.
Got it. That's
Yeah.
interesting. And has that changed at all? Like, does Diddy get internet access? Do you think? Do you think he's been aware of a lot of the ongoings, or do you know
I mean,
how?
I'm gonna keep it real with you. He's Diddy, so like he's in a federal prison system right now in Brooklyn, and you know, he has a lot of eyes on him, so he has to be careful about how he moves and the things he does. But I know for me and a lot of other guys that were in the state prison system, we found our ways around, if you know what I mean,
Mm.
to get the tools and resources that we needed to stay in tune with the times.
Right, that makes sense because obviously, I mean, people make tattoos and there's all, I mean, God, there should be a book on all the ingenious ways people have gotten around things in prison. It just shows the human
Yes.
mind how if you say, no, we don't have this anymore. Well, but I do have this pen and I have the coil in the pen and I have the ink and I can make a motor if you can get me a battery and
Yep.
this flashlight can put, it just that intrigues me so much. Like just how, when you take things away from people, they will figure a way out. You think it's impossible to escape from Alcatraz, but people made it off the island.
Yeah, there's you become very very creative inside, and you know, a lot of times we become manipulators in there. So you'll have correction officers and staff, civilians and stuff like that that you build a relationship with, you talk to on a daily
Sure.
basis. You're there for years with them, and you might get them to slide you a cell phone. You might get them to bring you
Right.
some liquor. You may There's
Right.
different things that you'll be able
Yeah,
to
because
do.
once
And
you make a friendship with somebody, the sky is potentially the limit. Once they feel they can trust you, you've trusted them. I imagine that's when, if you were good on the, if you were good at, talking people into things or sales or things like that, I'm sure it's a natural. Yeah, somebody said human to human interactions. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you got to think about it. People that are working in the prison system are doing time as well. Even though
Right.
they'll do 8 to 16 hour shifts and go home, but when they come back, you got to live with me. You got to
That's a
live
good
with
point. I
us.
never thought about it like that. That they're
Yeah,
kind of doing. I have a friend who works in Illinois at a prison, and he's like the physician's assistant, and he just patches people up all day.
right.
He loves it, but yeah, I never thought about that. Like he comes home for less time than he's there all
Yeah.
day dealing with,
hmm
that, yeah, prisoners and everything. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's so I wouldn't be surprised, like, even though Diddy has a lot of eyes on him, I wouldn't be surprised if he has access to a phone somewhere, or
Sure.
some type of internet access where he can send messages. But then on the other side, it's like he knows he has a scrutinizing eyes on him. So he
Right.
has to be very careful with how he moves. Now, that's not to say that there aren't other prisoners that are in there with him
Sure.
that have phones. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
and they're probably watching his back. I'm sure, like you said, a relationship with a security guard. I'm sure they're like, dude, Diddy is my best friend now, and
hmm
yeah, I'm sure there's so much give and take that happens in those types of relationships.
Yeah.
Now, Champ, I remember one time when you and I walked outside of the courtroom. I believe it was Jane Doe. And we were kind of discussing how she got the $100,000 budget for the Turks and Caicos trip. And I remember you and I forget another gentleman was out there, but we were just talking about how we were getting this feeling that the RICO was not happening. You know what I
Yes.
mean? I know, like with Don Richard's testimony, that was maybe the first time when I had kind of come out of that courtroom and I'm like, this is all terrible, but I'm not seeing the RICO because they're saying she was kidnapped, but she went home every single night in between the 5 days of interrogation.
Right.
And then I remember you and I coming out and we're sitting there like, well, what is the jury going to think when Jane Doe is given $100,000 budget for like her dream trip in Turks and Caicos, and to convince the jury that that was coercion or RICO, like we said, racketeering. What do you think? Do you remember it all, that conversation we had? Or
Yeah. I remember that. I remember that conversation very well. And I remember, like, I'm an educated guy, right? I have my bachelor's in liberal arts, so I never look at things on face value. I always question everything. So, um, when we first spoke about it, I said to myself, "Okay, Dawn Richards gave her testimony. She painted this canvas of Diddy looking like the worst of the worst. Then you had Jane Doe come, and when I heard Jane Doe's testimony, I said, what did he do wrong here?
right,
Right?
right.
Like she had all of the freedom to walk away from him at any time. At any time, she could have walked away from the whole situation, but she was being taken care of, right? So she got the things she needed. And then, I knew who the Jane Doe was prior to her taking the stand. And I looked at it and I said, well, she was doing the same thing with 50 Cent. 50 Cent was taking care of her, flying her from point A to point B, giving all the things she wanted. She even gave him a child. And
Now,
then,
hold on a second. You just said Jane Doe and then you mentioned 50 Cent. So you're saying Jane Doe was with 50 Cent.
yeah,
Okay.
Daphne Joy. We're talking about Daphne Joy.
So Daphne Joy is Jane Doe.
Yes, that was 50
Are we
Cent's baby
allowed
mother.
are we allowed to say that? I didn't
Yes,
even.
it's been all over the internet. It was
Okay.
bro. While she was in the courtroom, it started trending
Okay, and
on Twitter.
I kind of am aware of that, but I also, when we were in there, I felt like it was, we especially had to be careful about saying anything about Jane Doe or Mia. Sorry, I lost your picture there for a second, champ. Are you still there? Oh, there you are. But it was interesting with Mia. I remember people were immediately texting me telling me who Mia was. Is
Right.
that now public information who Mia was or is?
I'm not. I don't. I think no. I don't think Mia's. I don't. I'm not sure. I didn't really follow that part
Well,
right there. But
we won't say it anyway because I know her name. Somebody had texted me who used to work with Puff or was in the the entertainment business, and they're like, "Is this who she is?" They sent me a picture, and I was like, "Oh wow."
yeah,
Now,
people know. There's people sitting in the courtroom in the actual courtroom where we were. There's people in the overflow room that have certain devices still, and they're sending out information in real time. But
God,
um, prior to Jane Doe, when we watched Mia, I said this girl's full of it. I
mm,
could tell she was full of it. And then when that the other lawyer, the black woman, I forgot her name from Atlanta.
Miss Westmoreland.
Yeah, Miss Westmoreland. When
Hmm.
she came, she destroyed her
Right,
because she was able to prove that Diddy couldn't be in two places at one time.
right. That was with Brianna Bangladen
Yeah,
when
Brianna Bangladesh. I'm sorry.
when
Yes, with
she
her.
when she was dangled over
The
the
balcony.
balcony. Now, here's something interesting somebody said to me that I hadn't thought about it. Miss Westmoreland said, "How could he be in two places at one time?" Because her picture taken on the day of the injury,
The
and
alleged
then
injury.
allegedly, and then he was in New York. But somebody made a good point. He had a private jet. So he could have maybe still been in LA, but I don't know what the time was when
When
that
she showed
incident
when she
happened.
showed the timing of when she reported the incident
Mhm.
compared to when she reported to the police to prior to when she actually took pictures of it and saying when it happened, the timing she said it happened, Puff was not around.
Mm.
And
Yeah, that
even
was
then, I like that. That's hours. That's hours of
right.
traveling.
Right, right. Even on a private jet. And that was and then remember she had said her mini mountains had been pinched so hard that they had bruises on them. Sorry, and I'm trying to use these innuendos.
Yeah,
Keep my ad dollars up. Um, but then she had admitted that was a lie. And then her lawyer, Tyrone, whatever, I don't think it was Tyrone Blackburn, the same crazy other lawyer.
right.
But she had admitted that that was a lie, but they kept it in there. Now, somebody had said, well, you know how when you have a lawsuit and it's pages and pages long, you don't read through the fine print. It had gotten left in there. But what I don't understand is how did the government not say, we need to make sure that if he didn't really do that and bruise you and that was not true, we need to remove that because when they ask you about it and you say it's a
Exactly.
lie, it's going to make the whole jury question everything else about you, you know?
Exactly. And that so that right there was my thing where I said, okay, this is crap. This whole thing is crap. Like, okay, Diddy is a domestic abuser, right? We know that.
Right.
He is
Yeah.
a terrible human being in that aspect. We know that. But
Mhm.
that's not what he's being charged with in the court of law.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then not only that, it's not like they call it a RICO and he's the only one being charged with the RICO. There's not a
Right.
whole team of people. When you look at the streets, right? When
Right.
you look at when drug kingpins go down,
Yep.
when there's criminal organizations like the mafia and stuff like
Yep.
that, they're coming for about 40 to 50 people, 10 or more, whatever. You see them come out on the chain gang line, embarrassed with the cameras in front of them and stuff like that.
Yep.
All you seen was Diddy. So that's how you knew off of the rip that this was a campaign against him and his power and the things that he's done.
Yeah.
Because
That's
he
very
has gotten away with a lot of stuff, and I'm sure the government didn't like that. Even the way the judge used to respond to the defense, I used to sit there and I wanted to say something so bad, sitting in the second row behind Puff, like This is bullshit. Denying certain evidence, not removing certain evidence, telling Diddy, oh, don't look at the jury. It was just a bunch of nonsense. And then when you
Right.
have someone who is a witness for the prosecution clearly lying on the stand, and you still allow that evidence to be admissible,
Right.
it's a smear campaign. It's coming
Yeah.
from up top. It's higher than the judge.
Yeah, you're right. And Rye just had a good point. You can't board a private jet or commercial without a flight log. Sounds like somebody else we know, Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
And that's a very good point. But now what, Rye, they could have accessed the flight log. That's true. Yeah, the assumption that he can fly. And Rye, you bring up a good point to the layman, which is myself, is yeah, I'm like, cool. I personally have never been on a private jet. So a lot of us think like, oh yeah, gas up the plane, we're leaving. But that's a very good point. You have to clear that with the air traffic control.
You got to get a ride to the airport.
Yeah, like, everything. There is a paper trail to all of these things, and you can't, unless you just steal a plane and go, you can't just get up in the air without letting somebody know. That's a very.
And here's point. Another thing. Another thing was when I thought about the trial in its totality, I said to myself, the prosecution worked their hardest,
right,
to touch the emotions of the jury, not logic.
Yes. Right, yeah.
That's what all this was about. It was like, our defense as being prosecutors to get this guy to go under the jail is going to be to tap into the emotions of the woman on the jury, saying this guy's a bad person. He put his hands on women. He drugged women. He sex trafficked women. And for the men to say to the men, not only teach them a lesson, we're not going to allow you anymore to be moving women from one place to another and spending money on prostitutes and stuff like that. But also to make Puff look like, because I'm sure that there were a lot of fathers that sat on that jury. So they may have been looking at Casey and these other women like, wow, that could be my daughter. She was going through this stuff, and make Puff look like even more of a terrible, terrible human being. But that's why I also applaud the jury for making the sound decision to not find him guilty of the highest charges, the most serious charges.
Yeah, I think that's a very, I mean, you bring up an excellent point with that of, they were going after the jury's emotions. They played that, the Intercontinental video over and over and over. And every single time it was like we were getting gut punched by that. Seeing Diddy step on her, throw her around like a ragdoll, step on her hip. But again, it was misleading because that's not what he was on trial for. So it really goes to your point, how they were just trying to emotionally get them to hate Diddy so much that no matter what they did, even if they didn't have enough evidence, you would still convict him of the RICO. Now, Cassandra Dorsey, thank you for this, because Brianna filed her lawsuit with Tyrone Blackburn, which I knew was Tyrone. Yes. I didn't know if it was the same Tyrone Blackburn, who is a mess. I mean, that guy, TMZ reported, he hit somebody who was trying to serve him papers, backed up into the guys. He was actually there one morning when I was waiting in line. I had paid my line sitter, Kay, the line guy, and Tyrone Blackburn just pulls up and gets in line with like 3 other guys, nice suits. Because I remember I go up to him, I was like, hey, did you pay for a line sitter? Because we all did. And it just seems like you just kind of butt your way in line. Right. And yeah, he was just pretty much ignoring me. Didn't say anything. He's like, I'm a lawyer. But he just had, the fact that he was willing to just butt the line like that said a lot about him. But I did not realize that makes perfect sense. That and it's very interesting that Tyrone Blackburn, like, who is he? And why was Brianna even, how did he get to her? It almost seems shady, like the government, money, but it's just like, it was so, when you look back at it, it was so foul in so many places that they thought they could get, Diddy for this. And it was just like, you would think the government was slicker than this. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense.
Here's the other thing, right? That really, really turned me off with this trial. was that it was 6 white women prosecutors.
Right. Yeah. I
How the
was saying
how
that.
the F does that happen? Right? So I'm speaking as a black man in America who has endured the prison system and the justice system on multiple occasions, unfortunately. And to have someone of Diddy's stature go on trial for something he essentially didn't do, like I said, the more serious charges of what the jury found him guilty of. And when I sat in there and I seen that the first time, I said, "Oh, he's gonna get something. He's gonna get something because if it's all women, forget the white part. If it's just all women
Yeah.
who are prosecuting this black man, then they're going to tug at the heartstrings of everyone in that courtroom, other women. They're going to
Exactly.
speak. They're going to speak as if it was them that went through what the other woman went through on trial. Because if you look at it, it's more women than anything, right? It's not really the men. It's not
Yeah.
really the men that took the stand as the prosecution's
Yeah.
witnesses, right? It was all about the women. So now you have women up there, and if we look at the history of how things go, as far as black men are concerned when they're on trial, and you have an all-white prosecution team working against you, 99% of the time you're not gonna win all the way. And they tried their hardest, and that's the thing, because it was all women and there wasn't no balance there, like 3
Yeah.
men, 3 women, or something like that. As far as
Right.
prosecution, they were all over the place. They
Yeah.
even came in looking raggedy. Like, did you see the way they were dressed when they came in? They look
I mean,
crazy.
I agree with you 100%, and that's something that people don't understand about Diddy's team. I said it was like a Swiss Army knife of lawyers. Like they had experts for each individual. They had, Miss Westmoreland, black female who could go in on the black females. They
Right.
had Xavier Donaldson, a black male who could go in on like Daniel Phillips and the Punisher and make fun of his ED. And he's like, so you're nicknamed the Punisher, but you have erectile dysfunction. And literally, I mean, he totally emasculated the man in front of the whole courtroom.
Right.
And then you have Mark Agnifilo, the white guy. So correct. Who kind of seems like a bear friendly, but correct. But then what? And he gets in on you, and then you have Brian Steele, who just the Rico.
That's the closer. That's
You
the
know what I mean?
closer right there.
Closer, and it's just like then you have Tenny Garagos, who her dad and her legacy. So yeah, I'm shocked that the government had all white women. That is not a way, if we're coming into some type of like a rap battle or something, you want to have everybody represented. So if you have somebody Latino on the stand, you can send Miss Gonzalez up there to fucking, talk to her people. Like it's a way to talk to people disrespectfully. But because we see a white male talking to a white male, he's able to go in a direction, where Xavier Donaldson, if he's going after a white female, that reads to the jury different than Miss Westmoreland going after another female. You know what I mean? And so it's so strategic. Like, I don't know if you remember, they brought in the one guy there was Dr. Hughes, who was an expert witness or whatnot. She was like an expert witness. He went in there and convinced everybody that she just does this for money. She gets paid $6,000 a day to do this.
Exactly.
And that was the only time we saw that guy. You know what I mean? Like, so people don't understand. Yes, the government looked like they walked in like this every morning. Where Diddy's team was just like freaking.
Exactly. They were sharp. Sharp to the nines.
To the nine, yeah. Jason Driscoll, I can't forget him. The guy who looked like a kid, and every time he would, his specialty was citing prior cases to where there had been a ruling and the judge had to be like, oh, all right, sidebar, let's take a meeting. Like, all right, now
That's the other thing, bro. There was more sidebars than
Yeah.
anything else in that in that freaking trial. It made no sense. I sat there the day that Diddy's former CEO and COO of Bad Boy and Revolt
Mm-hmm.
came, the Benjamin
Yep. Yep.
Ferguson, I think his
Yep.
name is, and there were about, I say about 16 sidebars during that time, and I was
Yeah.
like, these sidebars are only happening because the judge knows that he's hired by a higher power to invoke whatever it is for this trial to make Diddy look as bad as he can, and he's
Right.
working with the prosecution.
Right.
So it's like shit could be blatant. It could be right in your face. The
Yeah.
judge knows, okay, this person is full of crap.
Mm-hmm.
This is full of crap. But yo, let's sidebar real quick. All right, listen, prosecution, I'm gonna give you this one. I'm not gonna object to this. I'm gonna clear that one. But to the defense, I'm gonna object to that. Da da da. Da. And it's like, come on, like what? This is not a even playing field in the justice system. It's ridiculous. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's what I kept saying for people to imagine. It would be like, Michael Jordan, Kobe, the Olympic dream team going up against just like Spain. There was no there was no competition. And I'm
Done.
shocked that the government they chose to go with all white women like this when
Yeah.
if anything, none of them even looked hip enough to ever listen to Puff or that type of music to understand the culture. Because to understand the culture is to understand the jury and how
Right.
they're going to feel and how we feel about celebrities. You know what I mean? Like, if you like music, look at Kanye, perfect example. Kanye has been spitting off some of the most disgusting, anti-Semitic, just crazy stuff. He's making songs with
Mm-hmm.
anti-Semitism, and we still have not canceled him because he's such a good producer. He's such a musical genius that we let him continue to say these things. We have, half of our, musicians. I mean, the Rolling Stones used to have underage, women backstage and all that.
Led Zeppelin,
Led
all of them.
Zeppelin, there's a story of Led Zeppelin when they apparently had relations with a woman with a fish, and they like put a fish,
Oh my
you
God.
know, crazy,
That's crazy.
crazy. They these rock stars stapled furniture to the roof. John Bonham, the drummer, Led Zeppelin, rode his motorcycle through hallways. These were all celebrated things, and now the minute we hear from our black rock stars doing it, we got a problem.
I'm gonna tell you, it obviously we know this was a setup from the beginning. Okay, so the whole thing with Cassie happened. She put in a lawsuit. She got the money the next day or the day
Yeah,
after, whatever the case may be. That opened up the door for the powers that be. When I say the powers that be, I mean the Ciroc guy. What's his name?
Delagio,
Delagio.
when
To
he
go
tried
to
this too. Mm-hmm.
right. He has enough money to say, oh, I'm gonna give you $5 million to just make this dude look the craziest as you can and put him away
Right.
for a while. And
Yeah.
then you had, there is stuff out there from from Diddy, from interviews he's done where he's like speaking very pro-black. Okay, speaking very
Right.
pro-black, speaking about independence.
Uh-oh. I lost you there
Hello?
for a second. You still there?
I'm sorry, I got a call. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're back. No problem. Keep
Can you
going.
hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, where he's speaking pro-black, he's speaking about independence, about us taking ownership of our own stuff, and he's speaking on that aspect because he was a slave for too long for so many institutions, right?
Mm,
He got with one of his starts for him was with Clive Davis, which is
right.
a powerful
His
black man that
mentor who
put him in
taught him all
position,
this. Yeah.
which is a powerful white man that put him in a great position, gave him all the money
Yeah.
he needed to do what he
Right.
did. He was able to get out of that, get his own situation going, started
Mm-hmm.
hiring a lot of other black talent, and sure, he had shady business with a lot of his artists, but he learned it from his higher ups.
You
At the
learn it
same
from
time,
somewhere. Mm-hmm.
yeah. At the same time, now as time goes along, he continues to work for these institutions. He gets the
Mm-hmm.
Ciroc deal. He gets other endorsements from other large white institutions, right? And
Yeah.
now he gets to the point where he's like, okay, I'm a billionaire. I want to do my own thing.
Right.
And
He wanted, he thought, yeah, yeah.
as soon as you make that decision, not to cut you off, Sam,
No, you're
as
fine.
soon as you make that decision as a black man in America
Mm,
to want to do your own thing, to be independent, to help uplift your people, it's a effing problem. And that is
right.
a problem in itself because it's like, how can you have, and no disrespect to anybody in any other community, but
Sure.
you have the Jewish community that has their own way of doing things and they have their own power and they're very successful. Shout out
Yeah.
to them. You have the
I'm Jewish.
Arabian community, right?
Yeah.
You have the Arabian community. You have the Native American community. You have all these communities, even
Right.
the LGBTQIA communities.
Right.
And because you have this one black man that says, I want to pull all of my resources between myself, between
Right.
Jermaine Dupri, between Jay-Z, between Suge Knight, between this person, that person, so we
Mm-hmm.
can build our own. It's like, no. And I'm gonna tell
Right.
you why it's like that. It's like that because it takes money out of their pockets.
Of course it does. And I was gonna say when you were saying that Diddy found out he's black, and I think that's
Hmm.
the harsh reality of America is that, they say that like if I'm in a car and I get pulled over, and I'm poor, I'm gonna have a lot better chance of surviving that interaction than you, who's a billionaire, because they
Yeah,
don't recognize you as the billionaire. If they don't recognize you or you're a billionaire, you're black. So for me, I'm Jewish. If you don't like
right,
that, I can turn off my Judaism. You can't turn off, I always say you can't turn off your blackness when you get pulled over. You know
right,
what I mean? And that's like, you'll see people, minorities who think all these white people love them because they're speaking their racist language. But the minute it comes down to it and you challenge their system, then you're black. And then you find out very quickly. And I think that's a little bit to your point, what happened to Diddy. He challenged the powers that be. He said, hey, you're only distributing Ciroc to black neighborhoods. I want this distributed all over the world. And I think they said, let's teach him a lesson for trying to sue us. Like, you want
they
to try and
they
sue
they
us?
you're absolutely right. I agree with you. They also taught him a lesson with the De Leon situation.
That's the DeLeon. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. There's
with
Bellagio and then
De,
DeLeon. Yeah. It's all, yeah.
yeah, because when he was promoting De Leon, he
Right.
hired a lot of us to
Mm-hmm.
promote it, but
Right.
the distributor just was like, no, we just want it in these communities.
Right.
And he didn't like that shit. And I get it. I wouldn't like it either. It's like, why can't I expand to middle America, to Idaho, to Iowa,
Exactly.
to
Right.
all these different places? Why does it only have to be in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, or Brownsville, Brooklyn, or
Right. Right.
some terrible neighborhood, even where
Yeah.
there's poor whites at,
Right. I
right?
drink Ciroc. I mean, to assume that white people wouldn't drink Ciroc, and maybe it was a power move. Maybe that was their goal all along, is to keep him in his lane, so to speak.
Right. And you
Now,
notice it. Go ahead.
no, I just had AT2. He's on the feed. He's great. A great YouTuber. He said, I had heard that Diddy didn't look scared or shaken. Is that true? And I just want to answer that. I think for the most part, I don't think he ever looked scared, so to speak. There were days that he came in and it almost seemed like he got good news from his lawyers, like it was almost Harlem shaking. He would be like, hey, giving out a lot of love emojis. But then there were days where after some testimony, it felt like, oh, we're not sure. And he would kind of come in humble and quiet. Now, definitely at the verdict, he was scared. He had his head down. He was kind of almost like praying. I mean, as any of us would do if your life is on the line. I'm guessing whoever you pray to, or whoever, is your God or whatever, you are talking to that energy, begging that energy to let you off. So, it's funny. I mean, T Lounge said more shaken. And I think I noticed him definitely the morning of the verdict, shaken and just hyper anxious, would probably, and I'm sure terrified. I mean, how could you not be terrified? We're all sitting in there and it doesn't matter, it doesn't change our lives at all. But for him, that was a difference of him getting a life sentence or 10 years. Now, somebody was saying in here in the comments they think Diddy is going to do 10 years, and I just don't know about that.
I don't see that. From my experience, of going through the justice system, this is Diddy's first conviction.
Right.
This is his very first conviction at 50 something years old. The last time he was on trial, he beat it through
Right.
crazy means, but he beat it.
Right.
So they can't use that against him. So now, a lot of times, what the feds do, the most I could see him getting is 5 years.
Yeah, that's
Right?
it. See, somebody just said human nature in October. The judge is going to give Diddy at least 10 years because he didn't like the verdict and doesn't like Diddy at all. That's why he called him a threat to society and denied bail. I don't know if I totally agree with that because, one thing I respected about the judge, and people are like, oh, the judge is paid off, the jury's paid off. That judge seems, that judge Judge Subramanian just seemed just super by the book, super fair. Which I think
No,
you
Sam.
agree with
Hell
that.
no. I
So
can't agree with that, bro.
okay,
No,
well, good. I
he
like
wasn't. I don't feel like he was fair at all. First,
really. I thought, in my first trial, seeing the judge, I don't know. Yeah, go ahead, give me your opinion on that.
from what I've witnessed, because you were there more days than I was, but the days that I was there and I witnessed how the judge reacted to certain things,
Uh-huh.
it seemed like it was very one-sided. It seemed very prosecution founded and based more than it was equal. Because, like, let's take the bail package for instance, right? There's so much that Diddy was willing to give up to be on bail. He was willing to stay at home, to stay in.
Right. Right. But see, I thought that was just because both sides had agreed on that. But you're saying the judge gave him denied the bail because you feel like he was being unfair. I think it's interesting that that point because, like I said, I was inside the courtroom and I just assumed that the judge is going to be fair. And I saw somebody, Rye, made a comment about, Jewish people, how, some people think of it as a race. I personally think of it as a religion because, like I said, if we get pulled over by the police or there's a situation where we want our whiteness, I always am able to retain that, like somebody said, I'm white. Look at me. I'm white. I don't always tell people I'm Jewish, honestly, sometimes because then I'm not sure how people are going to feel about that. But people always tell me classically, like, Sam, you don't look Jewish. You're not, and it's like my mom's maiden name is Rubenstein. So that's about as Jewish as a last name get. But that's what I think the big difference is in all of this is why, why a black man on trial has the hardest time because he doesn't have that white privilege on his side. You might have the money on your side, but at the end of the day, privilege and money is what really does it, yeah, the treatment is different. I totally agree with that. Yeah. It's true. I mean, it just that is American AT2 going back to it. A fish. Yes, look it up. Led Zeppelin. Let me see if I can pull this up while we're here and search it. Led Zeppelin fish story. Let me see. This is crazy. What actually happened with Led Zeppelin and a mud shark? Of all the wild urban legends in the history of rock and roll, the infamous 1969 mud shark incident is perhaps the most baffling and graphic, but what really happened? As the story goes, some or all the members of Led Zeppelin and a band called Vanilla Fudge pleasured or at least engaged a groupie with a mud shark and filmed the encounter. This is a freak off before freak offs. Over the years, many have written off the salacious rumor as entirely made up, while others insist it's just too bizarre to be fiction. Road manager Richard Cole defended the incident in the unofficial Led Zeppelin biography, Hammer of the Gods, which I've read that book. It's an amazing book, saying it was nothing malicious or harmful. No way. She might have been bit by a shark a few times for disobeying orders, but she didn't get hurt. Oh my gosh. Can you guys believe that? So in the context of Diddy, there is allegedly tapes of Led Zeppelin, my most favorite band, one of the best rock bands of all time. And you just heard that story. Did you hear that at all? Did you
Yes,
hear that
I
at
just wanted to
all?
apologize. Yeah,
You're
I heard
fine.
everything. I had got a phone call and
Yeah.
whatever.
No,
But
you're fine.
yes,
But yeah, exactly. Human nature. Ozzy Osbourne biting the head off a bat when he went into a meeting with record execs and he wanted to impress them. And Ozzy Osbourne had a bat, bit off the head of a bat. It was bleeding out of his mouth. The
yep.
Prince of, so I think we have to understand the context of history of what we let a lot of our white artists, it was celebrated. And so when I was in there hearing, oh, Diddy had a $46,000 hotel damage bill, I'm like, of course. In that the celebration of rock and roll is debauchery and doing all this crazy stuff. Now, maybe it's not so much anymore, but yes, and yeah, right. And like, look, we don't have a lot of recollections. Like Led Zeppelin, they got into a lot of fights. John Bonham got in a lot of fights. It wasn't with women though. So we're not hearing about a lot of domestic violence. We're hearing about crazy S acts. But yeah, Diddy, like we've said, Diddy is not a person you want to date. I don't believe he's anybody you want to work with. You know what I mean? Like he's a brilliant entrepreneur. He's a brilliant producer. He's a brilliant, we've seen his work. But
let me ask you a question. How you know how many powerful people, rich people, black or white, are
yeah,
out there that do some of the same things?
worse. Exactly. And I think
Even worse. I mean, Diddy,
right,
okay, he indulges in drug use. Okay.
yeah,
A
everybody
lot of
does.
people that
Yeah,
do that.
sure.
He loves to have sex with women, right?
Everybody does. Yeah.
He likes voyeurism. He likes to watch the woman he's with being pleasured by another man,
A cuck.
right?
We've heard of these types. Yeah.
Fuck all, right? The worst thing that we seen as far as what was presented to us was him putting his hands on Cassie.
Right. Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So it's like how different is he from any other person who comes from nothing to something,
Right.
and they just are able to project.
Right. Or champ, how about somebody, this is a man who took a woman, let's just say, like I was trying to have friends in Miami who have taken a woman and bought their plane ticket, their hotel, with the intent to go to Miami to do what? That is illegal. That is that, so what rich person or anybody who can afford to take a woman, and what woman, and women in the comments, be honest with me, or men. There's men who've been flown out. There's women who've been flown out. And the intent is always, we know what? Nobody ever flies somebody out to Miami, take you out to these expensive meals, takes you out to the clubs, the shows, anything, like T.I. say, you can have whatever you like. You can have whatever you like as long as I get what I like.
It's called reciprocity.
That's right. And
reciprocity.
This is the deal that consulting men and women are waiting. The woman is like, hey, you know what? He's cute. I like him. He's also going to take me to Miami. I've never been. We're going to go on a helicopter ride. Boom. There's an expectation back at the hotel, but that's illegal. That is a federal crime. So how many people are guilty of this? That's my question.
A lot. And somebody said in the comments that Rick James kidnapped that white woman and got 5 years and served 2.
Exactly.
There's a lot. There's a lot, man. And I just feel like what I'm tired of is the powerful black men that have their own ways of living their life, constantly being hung. You know what I mean? Like, it's a different way of dehumanizing than it was back in the slave days. It's a whole different way. Like, we'll build you up and we'll bring you down at any moment that we say so, at the snap of a finger, like Thanos.
And do you think, now somebody brought that up to me, Queen Ahmadiyya Shakur said that this was, you know, like they were buck breaking Diddy metaphorically in front of. Do you agree with that at all? Like, in a sense, taking a black man, like we had talked about, who had all this money and power, but then wanted to sue this larger entity. Do you think, in a way, this was a humiliation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was definitely buck breaking. You got to understand that because laws and policies and things like that have changed over the last hundreds and hundreds of years, things can't be done as blatant as they used to be done. Right? If it was still like it was back in the days, then you would still see people being hung on trees. You would still see black men being put in front of their families, tied from one horse to the other horse, and telling the horses to halt and break them apart in front of their families. The whole Willie Lynch theory. Um, you would still see that, but it still exists today with how
Right.
welfare works,
Mhm.
where the welfare system is like you cannot have a man in the house. You
Right.
have to depend on the government. There's
Right.
so many ways that they buck and break black
Mm.
men in America. Uh, you know, the interactions with police.
Yep.
Is one of the biggest things. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? That
the
leads
way
to
I
killing.
get to interact with police and the way you do, I mean, I'll never forget, I was with Donnell Rawlings in St. Louis, and these police, I come out of my friend's house, and they were like in my car, the door. I was like, what are you guys doing in my car? And Donnell's like, Sam, talking to them like that. I'm like, I got this, Donnell.
It sounds like a
And
Dave Chappelle
Donnell's like
skit.
hiding behind the car, you know, and he's like, oh shit, son. You know, like,
Mhm.
and it's my white privilege that I understand that I can talk to a police officer. I can talk to anyone almost any way I want, and I get that benefit of the doubt, you know. And I think most people don't understand our history to even know what the, like, psychologically how buck breaking is still happening. I just found out that there were buck breaking farms, you know. So I'm learning this history still, and I feel like I'm pretty, you know, woke, like, you know, white dude, you know, which woke is a compliment. You know, white people have taken the word and bastardized it. You know, they stole it from the black culture, of course, and have made it this negative thing. But, you know, woke is a positive thing, and it's like being aware of this history. I think more people could we would have a better understanding of each other if we knew each other's history, you know, and
Yes.
especially white people understanding our Black American history of slavery, you know, not to get too deep, but
Yeah, but it is. I mean, it's a public health crisis at the end of the day when you look at it from the top down. There's so many layers to it, right? It's not just what we see on surface value. Oh, Diddy's being charged with RICO. No, it's way deeper than that, and we can talk about this all day. At the end of the day, what I wish for Diddy, because I've been around his family
mm-hmm.
and his friends, and at the end of the day, he is a father.
Yep.
He is a grandfather. He
Yep.
is a musician. He has shifted the culture in so many ways.
Yep.
Musically, he has employed a lot, thousands of people. He has changed people's lives, essentially,
Right.
right? And his music, along with all the artists that he signed, have been a soundtrack to many of our lives. So I look at the scales, right? That's how I view life. I look at the scales and I say, okay, which is where's the balance at, right? Of course, everybody has a positive and negative side to them.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's perfect. You can't throw stones at a glass house and then hide your hand, right?
Right.
You We all suffer from certain negative behaviors, right? There's certain things that I do to this day that people will consider negative, that they will consider wrong, but I'm like, I have to live. I have a life. I got
Mm-hmm.
things I got to do to get through day by day. So with Diddy, I wish for him to get the knowledge and the spiritual awakening that he needs while he's in there.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the first time this has ever happened to him where he sat in prison for this long.
Right.
That he come in, and I heard that he's taking programs, an anti-aggression program. He's
Yep.
doing a drug rehab program in there, which is
What do you
great.
think about that? Because 50 Cent just trolled him saying he did that when the Cassie video originally came out, and so people are like, you know, 50 was trolling him like it didn't work back then. Why do you think it's gonna work now. And how do
Well,
you feel
because
about forgiveness? Is
well,
this something like, you say like we can forgive people, or how do we compartmentalize this?
well, first to answer your first question, I feel like it can work. I've seen brothers in the system, including myself, who have used the programs to
Okay.
our advantage in order to change our behaviors.
Hmm.
Another thing is that the spiritual aspect. Can you imagine you being someone who had the world in the palm of your hand,
Yeah.
had all the money in the world, had a beautiful family, a thriving music career, and then it all gets snatched from you in the
Right.
blink of an eye, and you're forced to sit still with just you and God,
Yeah.
right? Some people will take that and say, okay, it's time to make changes.
Mm.
And I feel like Diddy will come out a better person
Hmm.
because this is the first time he's experienced this. He's always had people at his command to do whatever he wants. He
Right.
claimed he was God at one
Right.
time, right? So
Right.
now you're forced to sit and be like, damn, I'm not God. There is something higher than me that is pulling the puppet strings in my
Right.
movements,
Yeah.
with the devil and God. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
now I always use this term that when you get arrested, it's not in the form that is being said by America. It's called arrest. You need to
Mm.
get a rest, not
A rest. I've never
arrest.
heard that before. That's brilliant. A
Yeah,
rest. Like God has put you here for a rest, and to really sit and
sit still. Let me tell you something. I
hmm.
was in I was in solitary confinement when I was inside for about 2 years straight.
You were in
Right,
solitary confinement for 2 years. And can you
two
explain to
years.
me what that is? Because that sounds like my worst nightmare, torture. What is that? Explain that to me.
Well, solitary confinement is when you're on lockdown for 23 hours out of the day and you only go to recreation for 1 hour. Where I was at, the recreation was a chicken fenced like pen, like what they call it, like a terrace
Okay.
in the back of your cell. So you're really not going out to a yard with grass and walking around and stuff like that. So I was in a place called Governor, um, S Block or SHU, they call it Special Housing Unit,
Okay.
upstate New York by Canada. And I was there for 2 years for basically running a drug operation inside the previous prison I was in.
Okay.
So when I was in there though, I was forced to sit with myself. No distractions. No distractions at all. It's
Mm.
just me and I'm talking to myself.
Wow.
Okay? I'm pacing back and forth at certain hours of the day. I have a schedule. I read certain books. At certain hours of the night, I do my prayers, I do my meditations, I do my writing in my composition book,
And you had to
everything.
have everything scheduled out with that 23-hour
Yeah, I
day.
had to, bro. I
It's
had to.
insane, I imagine. And
Keep saying.
how big is this? So you're in a cell by yourself for 23 hours.
Well, the cell blocks that they had at that time, I know they changed things around now, but it was double bunk. So you could be in there with another person, but my behaviors when I first came in there, I was like beating up every cellmate that came in. I didn't want to be around anyone. I was just
Okay.
so pissed off with myself, so I projected that to anybody who came around me.
Wow.
So they forced me to stay by myself. And there was a time, this is how much you have to deal with yourself. There was a time when I was going to commit suicide while I was in there.
Wow.
And I talked to the higher the higher power prior to me doing it, and he gave me a sign as to not do it. And I did
What
it.
was that sign?
So the sign for me was my dad, right? I never met my dad, never knew my dad from a hole in the wall. And this particular day, I was fed up, I was done, I was about 9 months in. And I said, you know what? Any place got to be better than this place. I was
Mm,
using all of these different defense mechanisms and reasonings in my mind to not be here anymore. I'm like, I know it got to be peaceful somewhere else. Death got to be easy because life is hard. All these different things I'm saying to myself.
mm,
And I got on my knees crying and prayed. And I asked God, if I am not meant to kill myself and I'm meant to be here for a purpose, I need a sign. I need a sign right now,
wow.
right? And this is how I know God exists, or the universe, the higher power, laws of attraction, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
exist. So after that, I set everything up. I set up the sheet, that I braided. I cut the sheet up, I braided it so it could be strong. I
Oh
hung it
wow.
from the ventilation system
How did
with
you
a
cut the sheet up? Like you ripped it apart,
oh
I'm
no,
guessing?
I just you
Oh,
bite
with
it.
your teeth.
You
Yeah,
bite
okay.
it with the corner of your mouth and you
Yeah.
just shred it. And
Uh-huh.
then I braid it. So
Wow.
now I'm sitting there, it's count time. So count time is 4 o'clock. They shut everything down. The police walk around, the COs and do their count, right? To make sure everybody's in their cells, whatever.
Okay.
So after the count is usually chow, and after chow, it's mail, right?
Okay.
And that's like the end of the day. Like, and that the day basically ends for you around 6 p.m. So anyway, um, I prayed. After I prayed, I waited them to pass on the count. And then my spirit told me to just wait.
Hmm.
So I waited, chow came, I ate chow. And when I was about to do it, the mail call came around.
Hmm.
And when mail call came around, they dropped this thick ass letter into my slot, into my cell.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at it and I was like, it's probably some law shit, whatever. So I pick it up and it's a letter from my father.
Wow.
So that was always one of my wishes in my subconscious mind to like have some type of communication with my father, to meet my father, to know him, to understand why he wasn't around, all these
Right.
different things that a child would like.
Yeah.
And I picked up the letter and I read and I just broke down. I sat there and I said, thank you. I praised God and I opened the letter and I read it over and over for days, and
Wow.
it was like maybe 20 something pages of writing
Oh wow.
of my dad telling me his story, like him being in the military, him being a vet, him my grandmother not allowing him access to me, like all kind of stuff that I
Wow.
didn't know.
Why did his
And
grandmother why did she not allow access to
my
him?
grandmother didn't allow access according to him, and then I wound up asking my grandmother about this later.
Mhm.
Because she felt like he wasn't fit as a father. My mother was young. My mother was like 16 when she had me.
Mhm. Mhm.
So my
Wow.
dad was like 20 and he was in the military, so he wasn't around. He would be in
Right.
South Korea, he'll be in,
Sure.
whatever country he's in,
Yeah.
moving
Yeah.
around, but he was sending money for me all the time. The
Hmm.
military made sure that he took care of his child support.
Wow.
So even when he came back, my grandmother said she did allow him to see me one time, but I don't remember that shit.
Oh
And
wow.
when we seen each other, she said we seen each other. He bought me an army jacket and some whole milk, vitamin D milk, which she
Uh-huh.
said I was too young to have. And she was just like, "You're not fit as a father to be in his life, so I'm taking custody of him."
Oh,
And my
God.
grandmother wound up taking full custody of me and just left him out the picture.
Did you ever get to meet him after that
Yeah,
or
yeah. Um, when I came home off of that bid, that was a prior state bid that I did. And
okay.
I came home from that in 2012, and he was waiting for me at my great grandmother's house. And
Oh wow.
I was a little kid all over again.
Wow, I mean, what a beautiful story of like that you were just about to do that and then that letter came through. I mean, how powerful uh
Yeah,
that I mean, like you said, I mean that's God right there when you ask for an answer. And I always laugh when people are like, oh God, he this or like God is no he or a she, or it's not some old white man with a beard sitting up in the clouds, like it's a
yeah,
real energy and force that if you pay attention to and you believe in that, it's real, you know what I mean? And it's not fair. I always say, if there was some real idea of God, then why do you see criminals like crash off a freeway bridge? The car rolls 80 times and they get out running perfectly
right.
fine. But then you see a family hitting traffic in a minivan and everybody's gone. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So you're like, God's not looking out like that in a sense, but I do think in your times when you're at your lowest, that is when you're able to access that emotion. When things are
yeah.
that dire, we need something, a divine intervention in a way. Um,
Yes, I agree. But I
man,
gotta
that's
get ready to
great.
get off of here, Sam.
Okay,
I got
cool.
some business to take care of.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you, Champ, for your time though and your
of course.
stories.
Let's keep this going. Let's keep doing this.
Yeah,
There's a lot to talk about.
okay, I would love that. Hey, we can do this once a week. I'm going live like almost every day on my YouTube. Please make sure you guys to follow both of us. Here is Champ's link down there. And then mine is Secret Service Sam at everything. But yeah, champ, it was great meeting you in the courtroom, and thanks for your time today and sharing your story with us.
I appreciate that. Make sure everybody watching, make sure you not only subscribe to my YouTube channel, but watch my interviews for my podcast, Spin the Yard. I have some dope people that I've interviewed up there, and I'm sure you guys will enjoy it.
That's amazing. All right, dude. Thank you. I will see you soon. Hopefully for the sentencing, I'll be back. So
yeah, I'll definitely be there for that.
Okay, great. All right. Well, take care. Thank you, champ. Appreciate you.
All right. You too. Salute, brother.
Yep. Salute. Peace.
Peace.
All right, guys. Thank you very much to Champ. I hope you guys like this conversation. Like I said, I'm going to be going on. I'm going to be going live almost every day if I can, where we talk about everything. I mean, obviously, the Epstein, list. We're all looking for that. The Menendez brothers could get off is the latest. So I will be covering all things trials. If you guys have suggestions of stories you'd like for me to cover, just let me know, because I'm just trying to keep this flow going and feed my kids. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your support and your love. You guys couldn't do without you. This is Secret Service Sam, super secret show. Now you know. So I gotta go. But Samson is the type that's going to keep the flow, because I just rap, right dumb. And when I do it, I have to go home because I'm so slick. I'm so lit. I like to make them know that I do it. And Samson is the type that will spit. So if you like what I'm doing, do it now. Do it, do it, do it, do. Samson is the type that's going to entertain you. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do. Samson is the type that's going to entertain you. Do, 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 do. This is Super Secret Sam, the podcast. I never will, right? Never let them throw me off. Come on now. Do, do, do. It's Super Secret Sam, the podcast. Yeah. Do, do, do. It's Super Secret Sam, it's a podcast. Hey, we'll see you next time. Make sure you subscribe to me on TikTok and YouTube at Secret Service Sam. Love you guys. Ciao.